Our next speaker is Piphal Heng from the University of Hawaii at Mānoa. He is currently a PhD candidate in the Department of Anthropology at the University of Hawaii at Mānoa and graduated with a degree of archaeology from the Royal University of Fine Arts in Cambodia in 2002. He's been involved with multiple archaeological research projects in Cambodia, focusing on sites dated from the protohistoric to Angkorian periods. His research includes heritage preservation, regional settlement patterns, Khmer ceramic production and consumption, Southeast Asian state formation, and the political economy of the pre-Angkoran period. His primary research concentrates on pre-Angkoran state formation based on data from a regional center of Tala Burivat. He's also currently a Harvard-Yenching doctoral fellowship recipient, as well as having received many other awards for the research that he's been working on. And he's authored and co-authored several articles published in the in edited volumes, journals, and elsewhere. Please join me in welcoming people.
Thank you, Dr. Flatt. First, let me express my gratitude to the Harvard-Yenching Institute that support my studies and research. Thanks to Dr. Liz Perry and Rowan Flatt for the invitations. I finally got to meet you in person because we've been conversed by emails for the past 5 years. The controversies that I am presenting for this talk just focus within 600 years time frame, so not 2.5 million years. I hope I can convey that idea in a timely manner, so you don't kick me out of it. But so the controversy revolves around state formation of Southeast Asia. By CE 200 to 500, we see a regional phenomenon. Across Southeast Asia, mainland and islands, a series of small states appear across this region. The evidence that we have of them came mainly from the Chinese documents. My research concentrated in the pre-Angkorian area, which covers modern-day Cambodia, northeast Thailand, and southern Vietnam. So I won't go to the controversies along the border, but just focus on the early state part. So alongside these early states' appearance, we have religious Indic input. We have brick architectures, inscriptions using Pallava script, statuaries of both Hinduism and Buddhism. By the time they appeared, they tend to have a regional style. So we don't, presumably this style appeared as an offspring from a prototype. But up until recently, we have not have a lot of prototype of the Gupta period. So when it happened very quickly that this style occurred across the region. To explain the nature and timing of these states, old model suggested by early researchers, mostly French scholars working in Cambodia and Indonesia, coined the term Indianization, which infer the impositions of Indian superstructures, such as administrative techniques, legal systems, and the idea of universal monarch upon the pre-existing tribal societies. So the Indianizations model was used to explain how these states came around. Current research, however, concentrate mostly on archaeological research in northeastern Thailand, and it's thought to occur also in Cambodia and southern Vietnam to build a model of transitions from the prehistoric or Iron Age chiefdom dated between 500 BC to 500 CE to the later states, quote-unquote, Indianized state. So the controversies I would like to present today revolve around this term Indianizations. So it depends on the field specialties. For example, we have historians who based mostly on text, either local inscriptions or Chinese accounts. They tend to differ greatly among historians as well, because some of the historians based on the Sanskrit inscriptions, which look at the Southeast Asian state as an extension of an Indian political system. And then art historians who look at statuaries, of course you will see the Indian elements. Epigraphers who look at the vernacular language, Khmer or Cambodian language, would infer a parallel form of chiefdom or state within the so-called Indianized state. And then we have the Indianist, or the Sanskrit purist, who suggest that everything was implanted from India. But I would like to present all of this from an archaeological perspective, which I intend to do in the same vein as Dr. Lahiri presented earlier. Let's move toward this. So the prehistoric period, or the Iron Age period, we found many burial sites. A lot of them show signs of status with potteries, with bronze, jewelries, with beads, prestige goods like beads imported from either South Asia or East Asia, entered within the burials. Some have sword. But clearly, prior to the evidence of Indianizations, the evidence suggests that the local societies in mainland Southeast Asia especially have an already complex socio-political system. By the time we start to have inscriptions bearing kings of Sanskrit name, like Jayavarman or Mahendravarman, similar names used in South Asia, we start to see those temples. And then the succeeding period of the Angkor period. So the questions that we should look at is the transitions period. How did it take from this to that? How does it materialize in the archaeological records? So the time frame, I suggest we should look at the time frame between 200 and 600 CE. 600 is the earliest dated inscriptions found in Cambodia. So this is the area that I will talk about. My field research concentrates mostly in this area, Thala Borivat, located along the Mekong River. But I will also talk about sites down south, in southern Cambodia, southern Vietnam of the Mekong Delta, northeast Thailand along the Mun River. So if we put together the evidence of inscriptions and archaeological evidence, the map that we have is the distributions of the prehistoric societies, the reduced ware technology. It's spread across the entire region from northeast Thailand to southern Cambodia, where the Pre-Angkorian state later appeared. So this date between 500 BCE to CA 200. And by the time we have the early inscriptions from early kings, these large polygons represent their range. It overlaps quite well with these type of ceramics. The Chinese evidence, I'm glad Dr. Perry talked about Paul Pelio, one of the sinologists. He discovered Chinese text talk about Funan, one of the largest states in Southeast Asia, date to around 200 CE. Their inscriptions of the later period, around 400 CE, overlaps well with this technology. So the fine orange ware. So we see the succeeding period from the proto-historic or the prehistoric period, reduced ware or the black ware, to the fine orange ware. And by the time we have an outflung state system, the Pre-Angkorian period, the early Cham centers in central Vietnam, Dwaravati in southern Thailand, we start to see this new technology, ceramic technology associated with this form called candy. So within my survey area, that's 400 square kilometer, the evidence that we have is a mix between brick architectures, the lintel style, the decorative elements placed above the doorway, that is similar to some lintel in Ajanta cave, I believe. Then the ceramic technologies that dated between 200 BCE to around 500 CE. And also these beads that were found within the prehistoric burials. This carnelian bead was imported from India. So does this one, I forgot it, agate. So by the time around 200 BC or 100 BC, prehistoric societies start to incorporate these prestige goods, interacted with the outside world, interacted with within the Southeast Asian region as well as India and China. My survey suggests that the proto-historic period sites or burials were located sparsely along this Mekong River system. By 200 CE, they clustered into these two centers. So the clear evidence, if we talk about child formation of the cities, it's this center absorbed all the population from the proto-historic burials. And if we throw the date together from southern Cambodia to northern Cambodia with my research area, we have three distinguished and succeeding periods. So the first phase associated with the prehistoric period, then when we start to have evidence of temple or brick architectures, it started around 400 CE. Then the proper or the mature pre-Angkorian period. Again, if we overlay a layer of inscriptions and the proto-historic burials, they overlap really well. So there's a sign of continuity from the proto-historic societies to the later states. So far, we have no evidence of abrupt change that associate with the typical Indianizations in burials practice, because the type of technology, the type of potteries continue to be placed within the burials. The earliest evidence of cremations associated with Hindu-Buddhist tradition so far date to around 700 CE. And most of the pre-Angkorian sites, the large center, located atop prehistoric burials. What changed, however, is the change from wealth. So the wealth that we have for the prehistoric period occurred within individual burials or family burials. The later period, when we start to see state, it occurred around a temple. So clear distinctions between the two periods. With inscriptions also, not only inscription was written in vernacular language in Khmer, but also in Sanskrit. A lot of time they talk about the same thing. So it's, for an instance, that the pre-Angkorian period had some kind of dual universe. One have to be in Sanskrit that praise gods, and the other has to do with economic activities in Khmer. Do I run out of time? Okay, thank you. But in the vernacular language, we have different kind of title that generally translated into Sanskrit. Rakamatang, for example, a title for kings and queens, and in Sanskrit part, it's either Raja or Rani. So there's two. And then this part, like Time Clowing, it's title for governor of a region, and the equivalent in Sanskrit part is the name ending with Ishvara. So there's two perspectives that you can read from the Cambodian inscriptions. The inheritance patterns also we see continuities and discontinuities. Early inscriptions talk about matrilineal inheritance pattern, whereas when we start to see kings, the patterns get mixed, either passed down from father to son, brother to brother, or uncle to nephew. So it's a mix. And when we see temple, most of these inscriptions came from the temple, and we see attached specialists. So donations to the temple include all of these specialists. Each temple must have this part, the labor in the rice field. So their inscriptions list what they have for each temple. The temple itself is a corporate entity. We note change in settlement pattern. The two on the top were prehistoric settlement patterns, just irregular shaped mound, circular earthwork. And by the time we start to see state, we see this complex pattern of ponds and mounds and temples. This is in central Cambodia, this is southern Cambodia. The settlement units, mounds, moat mounds, which are the temple, and ponds. But in general, the pattern that Indianization model suggests is that by the time the state appeared, Arthasastra was used to design the state, including the cities. So far, we haven't found any pattern that fit the definition of Arthasastra. And even up to the Angkorian period, it's just a multiplications of mounds and ponds into this grid pattern. And it's nothing that fit the mandala pattern at all. So I will end with this. This is the LiDAR map from Angkor region. It's 5 kilometers. The entire region in Angkor is gridded with roads, with mounds and ponds. So, thank you.